Welcome, everybody. I'm Ed Lebo, the Director of the Public Art Program with the Office of Arts and Culture. And thanks for coming back for the fourth in a four-part series of digital tools workshops that are being sponsored by the Office of Arts and Culture, but delivered by Bill Dambrova. Bill, can't thank you enough for this. Just want to introduce a few folks. Barry Sparkman has helped to organize this, a little wave from Barry there, and Doug Oland I know is on, and Doug is our collections manager in charge of the care and feeding of all the works we have throughout our 500 square mile city. Katie Stiegel, I think you remember her well. She's a project manager. She's just back this morning from the 24th Street station where Frank Gonzalez is finishing off that great terrazzo floor out there. Katie's Public Art 101s that ran in September. I think all the videos are up online, so if you go to phoenix.gov/arts and find your way to the resources links, and maybe Katie, we can post that in the chat as we go along. Those are all there for those of you who want a refresher. And we've been working pretty diligently looking forward to additional workshops coming up in October and November. And so keep track of the website because we'll be announcing those, I would expect, in the coming week. But we have some great stuff on tap that will involve artists really drilling down into specific projects and talking a good deal about, and talking with you a good deal about how they went through the process of conceiving their designs and then carrying them out. So you'll want to tune into that. Can't thank the artists enough. And Elizabeth Grajales, I don't know if she's on yet, but she had a field site visit this morning for Loop 202 pedestrian bridge out in West Phoenix. Almost completed. But if Elizabeth's there, she's one of our public art project managers, and all of us are really here to help you. So if you ever have any questions about getting involved in public art or the city's program or anything else related to the arts, feel free to send us a note. I'd like to introduce Bill Dambrova. Those of you who've been on the last several weeks know that Bill's an Arizonan, an ASU graduate with a BA in studio art, and he's exhibited throughout the area, the region, and the country. And he's also worked as an exhibition designer, specializing in natural history museums, zoos, and aquariums. And I think you're working right now or consulting on a large-scale project about deep sea for the Monterey Bay Aquarium, scheduled to open in 2022. In fact, there was some news on that. There was some press on that over this past week out there on the web. You might look that up. And he's just finished designing, and the floor has been fabricated for the rental car center terrazzo as part of the SkyTrain. So with that, we're delighted to have you again, Bill, and I'll turn it over to Barry to start this off. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I'd like to echo Ed's thanks to all of you for spending part of your Thursday morning with us, and a special thanks to Bill. We really appreciate you leading these workshops. We're cooking up a new series of workshops for October, so be on the lookout for those. We're very excited about what we're putting together. And just a reminder, keep yourself muted. And if you're having any technical assistance, you can type in the chat and one of us will help you work through that. And with that, Bill, you can take it away.
All righty. Yep. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Everybody can see my screen. Cool. Going to hide the WebEx box there. Start with the slideshow. So again, welcome everybody to Navigating Vectorworks. This is going to be recorded and on the City of Phoenix Arts and Culture's website, and you can go back and watch the recording. So I would just say don't try to take notes or keep up in any way, just kind of watch and absorb what I'm doing. And I think basically what I'm going to show you will give you an intro to how to get started in Vectorworks and other types of CAD programs. Again, what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to try to squeeze into 40 minutes. And if you go to the Vectorworks university.vectorworks.net on their website, they've got a fundamentals section. And it's really intense detail. Just talking about opening a file, they talk for a good 20 minutes. So I would encourage, after watching this, if you want to use Vectorworks and get into Vectorworks, to go here to this Fundamentals tab and check that out. Let's see, I'll just keep moving. Okay, so in the last two workshops, I created a 2D line drawing from what I'm calling my critter in Illustrator, which we have here, and then I imported it into Sketchup. One thing I want to talk about is, just bring up, is that when I drew this in Illustrator, I've got perfectly smooth lines. They're vector lines, not segmented in any way. And if I mentioned that during the talk about going back to my Illustrator file for using for cutting out on a CNC router, that's what I mean. Because with these files, working in SketchUp, because this is such a complex shape, it's going to turn this into segments, little tiny segments. It's not completely smooth. So when I import the SketchUp file into Vectorworks to get this sheet drawing that's going to be a scaled and dimensioned drawing, you're going to see little segments in there and wonder why those are in there. And I'll try to talk about that in a bit. It's basically just to save processing speed. And that doesn't really matter because they're not going to be working directly from this, because what I'm showing you is, this is called a design drawing or design development drawing. They'll have probably people at their fabrication shop that are going to take this drawing anyway and turn it into one of their own files using their brand of AutoCAD. And so you don't really want to waste too much time trying to create a construction document if they're just going to take your design drawing and tear it apart and make something new out of it anyway that works better with their machines. So I'm using a Mac. Command on a Mac is the control key on Windows. Option on a Mac is Alt on Windows. And I'm using Vectorworks 2019. Now with these subscriptions, you can rent these for, this is actually like $250 a month. Or you can buy the whole program for in the thousands, $2,000 to $4,000 for their complicated AutoCAD program. That is, if you want that kind of detail, that's because you're an architect designing houses and stuff. So what I would say is, if you want to get a subscription, you could get one with a couple of other public artists and share that subscription. And whenever you need it, you can turn it on for that month and then turn it off for the next month. So you're not having to pay every month $250 for this program. So again, I set up my mouse so that I can use this rolly ball to zoom in and out easy without having to go click the little magnifying glass every time I zoom. And then there's this other little button here that I can use to orbit, which means if we were looking at a 3D image here, I could zoom all the way around this. Okay. So I'm just going to jump right in and get started. I got Vectorworks open already because it takes a while to open up. I want to show you how to just set up your page and your printer settings. So their format is pretty much similar to other formats that we've used. SketchUp with the toolbar. Let's see what's going on here. And then all the other little windows and stuff here that you can get the drop-down boxes and then open things up. So to start a new file from scratch, go to File, New, and then I want to create a blank document. Their templates get a little bit complex. And again, this program is a really powerful program. There's hundreds of buttons on here. I'm going to show you basically a way to take your SketchUp model, or take my SketchUp model and import it in here as a workaround so that you don't have to know what all these buttons do. Basically just going to get you to that final sheet that you can send to the fabricator in the quickest way possible so that you don't have to know how to do all this complicated math and stuff to create a CAD drawing. So you go to File, you have your page opens up. What I like about Vectorworks is it's very similar to Illustrator, nice white background, and really intuitive program. And it syncs up also with SketchUp. You can actually import SketchUp models. They have a drop-down where you can import from SketchUp. So they're really SketchUp friendly, which is nice. Okay, so we're starting a new file. Go to File. I like to start by going to Document Settings. There's a Document Preferences here, which is complex stuff that we actually don't really need to get into right now, but you can mess around with dimensions in here. I like to use the American Society of Mechanical Engineers dimension style. There's a drop down here that you can do different types, but that's what ASME stands for. and then within document settings, and then go to units. That sets you up with American feet and inches, millimeters, etc. You want to make sure your units are at feet and inches, areas at square feet, etc. Okay, so that is the document setup. Page setup is another thing altogether. Go to page setup. My Vectorworks file is connected to my computer that's set up with my printer that only prints out 8.5 by 11 size. And so to create my workspace, my design layer, I want to set up my page to actually do 11 by 17 because that's a standard size for creating document packages. So if you were to print this out as a book with several pages, 11 by 17 is a standard size to give to clients, fabricators, etc. So I want to go ahead and change this to 11 by 17. Then it says choose size unavailable in printer setup. That's because my printer only does this 8.5 by 11. Again, I know that ASMAB is 11 by 17. So I'm already set up here. I want to have the page boundary shown. Page breaks, if I had that checked, it's going to show, this is probably really light on your computer, but it's going to show two rectangles in here. This is 8.5 by 11, this is 8.5 by 11. So if I was to print it out on my computer, it would print out 2 pages to make the 11 by 17, and I could just tape them together. Okay, and then page setup. I don't really want to see the page breaks as I'm drawing, so I'm going to turn that off. Just want to also just draw your attention to this line across the top here. So layers in Vectorworks is more complicated than Photoshop. You have design layers, and then you also have a sheet layer. And I'll talk about that here in a second. This is basically your kind of your artboard and what would be your artboard in Illustrator. So a sheet layer, just gonna zoom up here really quickly. A sheet layer is your final, I guess, page that you would end up emailing or printing out and giving to a fabricator. And that has a title block on it with information, you know, your name, who drew it, whether it got approved. In this case, I'm going to say not for construction because, again, I'm doing design drawings, not construction drawings. And I don't want the fabricator to take this and just start making something without knowing, you know, how the welds are done, et cetera. That's a whole different drawing. You can put the page numbers in here and then these descriptions of whether you're looking at the plan view, the front, the side, et cetera. Okay, so there's a way to get a generic title block on your sheet layer. You have to create a sheet first, and you go to Tools, Organization, and then it opens up this organization box that has classes, design layers, stories, sheet layers, viewports, saved views, etc. We're going to be dealing mainly with design layers and sheet layers only. Classes, that's kind of complicated. That's where you set up all your line weights and things like that runs across the board on all your design layers. You can also find symbols in there. If I was to draw some really complicated architecture drawing of a house, that's where you would find standard sized doors, windows, and that kind of stuff is in classes. Oh, I don't know if you can see the kitty. Go on. There you go, dude. Sorry about that. All right, so what we want to do is start a sheet layer. So I'm going to hit the sheet layer tab, go to New, title it Critter 1. Oh, that's sheet number. Title it Critter 1. And then now we've got a sheet layer that's different than the design layers. We can do as many design layers as we want. We can turn on and off the visibility, but we want to be able to have design layers and at least one sheet layer. Okay, so now we're in the sheet layer. No, dude, because it says that we're in the sheet layer here in this tab, Critter 1. Zoom out. Note the toolbar here. Even toolbar setting up, there's a tutorial on that Vectorworks page that will tell you how to set up your workspace, but I don't want to spend time doing that because it's similar to setting up your workspace in Illustrator and SketchUp. Okay, but you can see the dimensions. There's constrained dimensions, radius, and that kind of thing. What I'm looking for is the title block, which is here. And I'm just going to click that, one click, and then I can bring the title block out into the space. And when I set it where I want it, I hit my left mouse click again. And then it gives you the option to rotate it all crazy. But I want to set it up to be constrained straight. So you hold down the shift key to make it so it is constrained to these different orthogonal settings. Click again with the mouse. It gives you options, different styles. I want to use this ASME, just the generic one here at the beginning. Select it. Okay. Now we've got this title block. If it's going to let me click, as many title blocks as I want. So I need to go back to the selection tool. And here is their generic title block, which is similar to the one that I showed you, where you can put drawn by, approvals, size, scale size, and all that kind of thing. I personally don't really like this title block, so I've created my own. And to get that, I'm going to go into the file that I was practicing with, the jump ahead file. Okay, so this is what we're going to end up with by the end of my workshop here. There's a, if you go to Windows and Palettes, that's where you can find all of the information for your palettes here. There's a thing called the Resource Manager. If you click that, this is where you'll find all kinds of resources similar to the SketchUp resource warehouse, where you can find already designed doors, windows, symbols, couches, all kinds of stuff you can plug into your design. So I want to go to the tab where my title block that I like is. There would be other symbols in here if I had already designed some different symbols. Again, don't have time to go into how to make a symbol, but I would grab my title block, drop it into the untitled one, get rid of the file. Now I'm in untitled. My title block is now with all the other symbols that would be in here, and I can just drag that right in to my sheet and then close out the resource manager. And then I can move this title block to where I want it to be on the sheet. Okay, and then I had it already set up, so it talks about the project, my name and information, how you can reach me, not for construction, etc. So I don't really want to draw my design in this sheet layer. I want to draw it in the design layer. So I'm going to go to design layer 1, where it's blank. You don't see the title bar. That's how you know you're in the design layer. And so the old way of drawing things, you would just like start drawing. Say if I was going to draw a museum pedestal or something like that, you would just start drawing it and then have to figure out how to make the side view by lining up all these different lines. Again, if you want to constrain the line, hold down the shift. And then you know where all your lines are. Draw your attention to this snapping box. You can hit snap object to make sure that your little cursor snaps on the object that you want. And then this is how you would have drawn the side view in the old days, before you could just pop in a 3D version of something you've done in SketchUp or in another program, or even within Vectorworks, you can draw in 3D. But this would be how you would draw all this. The workaround that I'm talking about that is much quicker if you've already spent all the time drawing your design in SketchUp is that you can just import SketchUp views as line drawings into your design drawing in Vectorworks. It's very complicated. So I'm going to open up my critter that we designed in SketchUp last week and then show you a few things about segments like I was talking about earlier. If you notice, I really want this to be a nice curve. If I wanted this to be a perfect curve, I would have drawn this individually and not imported it from Illustrator. So if you want to have your curves not segmented, like watch this. If I turn on this circle here, it's got these little segments. It won't be a segment if they tried to cut it out in a CNC router, you wouldn't see these segments. This is just showing you how it looks in SketchUp just to save processing speed. But if you want the curve to look like a curve, select the outside circle, go to, what is it, entity info, and then there's a place here that says segments. And you can change this, I think, all the way up to 999, but let's just say 200. And then it makes your circle look smooth. If you were to zoom way in, you'll see that this is still made up of a ton of different little segments. So when we do this, when we import this into Vectorworks, you're still going to see all these segments. But that doesn't matter because this is just to show your fabricator your design idea and to dimension it to scale. And when I say to scale, I mean that if you were to print this sheet out that we're going to do in Vectorworks, you would be able to look at the sheet and let me see how I am on the screen here. I can't pull up the WebEx thing. Anyway, this is a scale rule and it has, 3/32 of an inch, and you can just use this to see how big everything is if you printed your sheet at 11 by 17 to scale. And I'll show you what that means as we go on also. But what I want to do now is export different views of this model so that I can open it up in Vectorworks and start dimensioning it. So right off the bat, we're in SketchUp now, go to Camera, Parallel Projection, which means it's going to show it as flat as possible so the dimensions are correct. And then these were the views here. So if we look directly from the top at the plan view, this is the correct distance. This is about 10 feet here. And I can just do File, Export as a 2D graphic. As a drop down, I can save it as an AutoCAD file. And I want to remember this is the plan view to my desktop and then export. Okay. And then I want to do that with at least two other views. I want to do the front view, export, 2D graphic, AutoCAD, everything looks good. Front, export. And then I want at least one side view. So I'm going to pick this side, export, 2D graphic, and then a side view. Again, I think that AutoCAD snobs, if you want to call them that, are not going to like what I'm showing you, but the actual fabricators that will get this drawing from you will love it because artists usually don't know how to send things to scale in dimension. When I worked for a place in Los Angeles and sent the fabrication out to a firm, they told me that my design drawings were better than some of the construction drawings they got from Disney because even those guys would just draw on a napkin and hand it to them. So here we are back in Vectorworks with my design layer ready, and I can start importing what I just did from SketchUp. So I can go to File, Import. You can do it singly, DXF drawings, or you can import all of them. I'm just going to go with Import DWG. Choose the files. They're on my desktop, front view, plan view, side view. Open. All this stuff is already, this is just the default settings. You just want to make sure that your units are 1:1 so that when you brought over the to scale model from SketchUp, it'll be to scale in Vectorworks. You can check that. I'll show you how. Say OK. Action cannot be undone. And a little dramatic. It says everything was good. So now it's set us up. You can go to Tools, Organization. We're in sheet layers. We're going to design layer. You can see that now we have 4 separate design layers. I'm going to take each view that just got imported and just put them all in one design layer so I know where they're at. Okay. And to do that, I'm in side view now using the select tool, select the whole thing. I want to just group it now. So Command G groups it, and then Command X cuts it out. And then I can go into my design layer and drop it in by going Command V. And there it is. I'll show you how to scale this page in a second. You can see if this was an 11 by 17 piece of paper, you can see that it looks really small and you want to get the maximum size out of this when you print it out so your fabricator can see it. Go to Plan View, select it, group it by Command G. Sometimes it takes a second. I'm just on a laptop. I'm not on a big desktop, so sometimes it gets the beach ball. Grouped it. Now I'm going to Command X, cut it out, and put it into my design layer by Command V, pasting it in. And then my last one, I think it was the front view. Command G to group it. Oh, it gives you an option that it'll save it every 15 minutes, which I like to leave on. We'll call it Critters 1. Save it to the desktop. Okay, so I've got this selected. I want to group it. Hopefully, there we go. And then Command exit out of there, and then go back to my design layer 1, and then Command paste and drop it in. One thing I didn't do, which I wanted to do, was I'm going to go back to SketchUp really quick, put it back into perspective, and then just get an isometric view that I'm going to import as a JPEG so that the fabricator can really get a look of what this thing, the look and feel of what this thing's going to be. Because looking at a plan view or a straight on view, you might not see these little details. So I just like to do export 2D graphic JPEG, and we're still in SketchUp now. Export it to the desktop. Okay, and just like all the other programs, you can import and export JPEGs. Import image file. There it is. And there's my image file, and you can scale it with the bounding box just like in Photoshop. Hold down Shift to constrain it. Again, I know I'm moving pretty fast, but if you come back and watch the recordings a couple times, I'm sure you'll be able to get a better understanding of how to use, at least set up your page and all that stuff, and be able to start watching those tutorials. Okay, so now these are all pretty small on the screen. I can't just grab it and scale it up like I did with the JPEG. I want to have it to actual scale, so you could use that ruler I was talking about to measure on the page, on the printed page, how big everything is. So you can go to Tools, Organization. I know that all of these are blank now because I just cut everything out of these. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those. You always have to have at least one design layer, and that's the one we're working in here. You can turn on and off visibility by clicking the eyeball off or make it gray, etc. here. But this is important, scaling it to the right scale. You can go to Edit, and then I can change the design layer and all that. But here's a little button that says Scale. So you can scale it so your ruler can either see it at 3/16 equals 1 inch. I know already that it's 1/2 equals 1 inch, fits on the page the way I like it. Hit OK. And now it's made these guys a little bit bigger. This one, the JPEG, you can scale manually. Generally, I like to put the plan view up in the corner, the front view below, and then the side view off to the side. You might need to put more views. You might need to show the bottom if the bottom's different. In this case, it actually is, but I just don't have the time to show you everything like that. When you rotate an object in SketchUp, they're in Vectorworks, you can't just hover and rotate like you can in other programs. You have to go to the rotate tool and then do a click, let go of the mouse, and then hold down Shift to constrain, click again, and then it rotates it. So I'm going to click here, click again, and then rotate, and then click again. I believe that's where I want that to go. Again, the old days, you would have drawn this out in Vectorworks manually, and then to get this side view, you would have found the topmost point, drawn some lines here, and then had to draw out each of these individual lines. But this way is just a faster way to get to where we want to be. And I'm just double checking myself to make sure that it's lined up. And it's not, which means I got it upside down. I'm going to go back to the rotate tool. And then I'm just grabbing with the move tool. Now I know that it's still not right. Very interesting. So it's not lined up at the top or the bottom for some reason. That could have been just the way that I imported it. Sadly for time, I don't want to go back. So let's just pretend that this all lines up perfectly. We know this one will. I've done this a couple times here. Whoops. Zooming in and out with my mouse. Making sure that's lined up. And this is what I mean by it's lined up perfectly there. We would really have wanted to do that with this other one too, and I'm not really sure. I might have just grabbed the wrong side. And again, if this was construction drawings and this is a curve, I would have gone in and drawn these different segments here to show the severity of the curve. But time is of the essence. So I'm going to delete all these by just selecting them. Trying to zoom out here, hang on. And you can select multiple things by holding down the shift key. I want to move it up just a little bit. There we go. So just again, as a reminder, this is the drawing layer. If I want to see the sheet, if I want to take this and put it into the sheet, I can go to View, create a viewport. And it's going to create a viewport and put it onto that sheet layer. So I want to put it into the critter layer, which it already is at. Everything's set up here. I want it as wireframe so that it's not going to try to render it for the sheet layer. Click OK, and it puts it right there, dead center in the middle of my sheet. So you can manipulate dimensions and stuff on this layer, but I like to just, for something this simple, I just like to stay in my design layer and add dimensions and things. Just know I need to not go too far over because my title block is going to be here. So next thing I want to do is label each of these drawings. Just show you here, this is in the dimension toolbar. This is the symbol for creating a drawing label. So I'm going to select that by clicking it, moving over here, clicking somewhere underneath, and then it lets you rotate it all around. Hold down the shift to keep it horizontal. And then you can label it right now, scale the label, the sheet number and all that. This title is Plan View, and the sheet number, I'm just going to say, is that it? 1? There's something else I'm supposed to do. Let's see what happens. Click OK. Yeah, it didn't give me the number that I wanted here, so I'm going to go left click, Properties, and I want to be able to put the display label, and I can't find it. Drawing number, there it is. Drawing number 1. There it is. Okay, so I always start with one of these guys, and then click and hold Shift and Option, and you can copy and constrain it at the same time, and then release. And then you can go Option, and then constrain, and then hold and then release. And now these are all, I like to have them really lined up. Looks more professional that way. I just regular draw lines and stuff to line things up. Oops. Okay, and then again, time is of the essence, but to change, you can just go to Properties and then change it to Front View, and then change the drawing number to 2. And you can do that with these others. I would call this one an isometric view. There we go. And this is not to scale, so I want to make sure and set it up so that you can see that it is, you know, you can't scale off of it like you can with the rulers on the other ones. It's just an arbitrary size. So, hang on a second. There's a way to customize that, and I'm just not seeing it. Well, moving right along, there's a way to customize this and change this so that this says not to scale, and I would do that. Just for some reason, my eyes are jingle jangling and I can't see it. Zooming out, this gives us a chance to add the dimensions. Again, because once you print this out, you can use the scale rule to measure individual areas on your drawing. But I want to put a few major dimensions on here just so that when they just glance at it, they know what they're dealing with. So we're in the dimension tool. Here is where you can change the color of things, the attributes bar, and you find that in Windows. Actually, you find that in tools, attributes. But you can change the solid and the outline here. I want to take this, since I'm going to be drawing dimensions manually, I want the fill to be none and the color to be a dark red and my line weight to be 5, just so it's thinner than this line weight. So you can grab the dimension tool and just click, release, and then click. And then once you've made your second click, you can pull the dimensions up. And I know that this was drawn to be about 10.5, so I know that my scale is correct. Importing this from Sketchup made it so all these little circles are segments, so you can't really draw a radius from this. But if you wanted to, you can come and grab the circle tool, create a circle on top of it, so that now you have a circle that you can use the radius dimension tool from. And if you hover over an actual circle, you get the little crossbar knowing that you'll be able to create a dimension. If you hover over just a segment, you're not going to get that. So again, click and then drag out the dimension to where you want it, and it'll tell you that the radius is 5 1/8. So I would put dimensions all over this thing, wherever I can fit dimensions, wherever I want to communicate. You know, if I want this to be an inch or whatever it is, 1.5, and I want them to know that for sure and not to try to scale it. You can do that like this. There's other ways to pull the dimensions out as well, but I just like to call out certain dimensions, you know, the widths of things like that, just so they get an idea right off the bat of how big things are going to be. Again, you can put the snapping tool on so you can snap better to the corners. And I'm not going to go crazy dimensioning all of this like I would normally, but as many dimensions as you think fits, it doesn't get confusing. I would put as much information into this as possible to communicate to the fabricators. Next thing I want to show you is leader lines. You have this view of your model here, and you want to tell people what the textures and what this is made of. So you can also add text by going to the text tool, selecting where you want to put it, and then start typing. Say I want this thing to be all steel construction. Let me get this out of the way. Grind all welds. And then I want this to be nice and lined up also. So let's say you want this to be powder coated. Sherwin-Williams Dambrova pink. Oops. And then you create leader lines by just drawing with a line. I like the red. And then you can point to where you want to talk about that particular thing. And then there's, on this attributes, there's a little arrow here that points to the thing you're talking about. Trying to move fast, I'm already at quarter till here. Say you want just this area powder coated. And then you can keep doing that on down. Zoom out. Okay, so now let's say we have this all complete and we've got it looking the way we want it, similar to this with different callouts, all the dimensions that we want. We want to make sure that we are in sheet view. Click OK. Didn't happen. So you can go to here and go to sheet view and make sure that all your call outs don't cover up your title block and that your stuff doesn't fall off the page like it's doing. Again, I feel like I'm about to have to rush here and I don't want to. So we're just going to leave it at that. And then to print it as a PDF, simply go to File, Export, and then you have to export it as a PDF. Then it gives you options for resolution and all that kind of stuff. Export, wanted to export to my desktop. And then that is the fast way to quickly create a dimensioned to scale drawing that you can print out on your own printer or at Kinko's or something like that. There are ways to import this as a 3D model, and then say we imported this thing as a 3D model and we wanted to create multiple viewports, like you just have this without having to redraw it. You can go to View, create multiple viewports, and it'll set these viewports up for you. But since I've drawn this in SketchUp and there's all these multiple curves, it becomes a really giant file. So I just like to go straight to this. Let's see. You know, I think I've actually covered everything. I know that was really fast, but the end result, this is the most important thing, the end result. If you wanted to, you could even draw this in Illustrator. It may not be exactly to scale, but you could just draw all of this, draw each one of these lines dimensioned. You can draw this by hand. But for the most part, this is what the fabricator would like to have, something that shows them what the materials are, how it's made, and then they can take this design drawing and create a construction drawing from it with all the welds and everything specified on different pages. Each one of these, you know, called out at different colors. Maybe even each page has a section cut through this so that you can see how thick the walls of this thing are when it's made. You can get as detailed as you want, and believe me, the fabricators like it to be as detailed as you can possibly get. So with that, I'm going to find my WebEx thing here. Barry, is everything good? Is that okay? All right. And then I'm going to unshare my screen and just go back to the group. Okay, that was a lot in a short amount of time. Hope that made sense. All right. You good, Barry? I'm done.
Yes, I was trying to find the mute button. Question just came in. Would doing this in SketchUp be an option? What is the benefit of Vectorworks?
Well, yeah, the Vectorworks is an expensive program. I've tried to do it in SketchUp, and there's a thing I think called layout that just doesn't have the, it's just not set up to be as intuitive it is for me to do in Vectorworks, and I've never really seen anybody use that layout to create a sheet that like I just did that was as detailed. So I've tried it, and it didn't seem to make sense to me. So, and I've seen other comments that people have said that it just doesn't work the way they think it should work. So.
Are there any more questions?
Wow. So I have a question. I mean, it was just nod your head and let me know if that was too crazy. Were you guys able to follow along?
Another question just came in. Is this something that could be hired out?
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that. So you could take your SketchUp drawing or your Illustrator drawing, and even construction drawings. There are people out there that will work for around 20 bucks an hour. And I really don't like making construction drawings. I stopped doing them a few years back just because I want to stay in creative mode and not have to think that I'm going to have to draw this really technical thing and use math, and it's going to dissuade me from wanting to even draw it. So, so yeah, you can hire it out. I didn't have to do this for my floor project. I didn't have to create a dimensioned CAD drawing for my floor project, but this is a 3D object. And I think that, you know, if you wanted to say if you got a project on your own and you wanted to shop this idea out and just get a cost for it, you would need something like this for sure. You know, I just think the more information you can give the fabricators, the better. But you could draw this up on a napkin and hand it to them, and they could figure it out. They would just charge you for that time.
You know, the one thing that I would add to that, it's a good question because a number of artists who did the first round of the SkyTrain Terrazzo projects simply hired out their digital guns to carry out a lot of the work so that, you know, Bill mentioned staying in the creative mode. I think that's really important. And I think one of the important lessons in our world is go and hire the talent that knows more than you do about things that will make your work even better. I mean, that's really, in a nutshell, we can all train ourselves, not to undermine the whole purpose of these workshops, but we can spend a lot of time training ourselves on these things. But if you're in a pinch and you need to get some work done and you want to continue to generate ideas, go and find the talent you need to carry out this work, and then you can serve as sort of the editor and overviewer of that. And the process works both ways. So don't be reluctant to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. Part of this workshops is just to show you how involved these things can be, just to know whether you even want to go down that rabbit hole. Like, why would you spend $250 a month on this thing if you don't have to? But again, just these crazy times, having as many tools in your belt as possible, that's what I try to do. So if anybody wants to shop out their public art idea to me, I'll do it for them. But a little more than $20 an hour, probably.
And the next question from Allison, how often do you need to provide these kinds of drawings?
For me, in the design world, all the time. With public art projects, they're all different. So you may not need to provide one at all. But yeah, I mean, it's like, fortunately with City of Phoenix Office of Arts and Cultures, they're the liaison between me and the fabricators. So if you were to get your own public art project on your own without a liaison like that, then you may find yourself having to do stuff like this just to convey your ideas, because it'll be a new relationship, and you want to be able to have something as detailed as possible so that they don't just decide on their own what color to paint something. I just had a friend who designed something locally that had their contractor, you asked them to paint the inside of it and had this idea in his mind, and the contractor just did it, the idea that they had in their mind, and it did not sync up. So, you know, I would spell it out in as many ways as possible with inspiration images that you got from the internet, whatever it takes to convey your idea, to make sure that there is no question of what you want compared to what, don't assume that they know what you want ever.
And the next question, where do you recommend finding someone to hire to do this?
Who do I recommend to do this? Was that it?
So where do you recommend that they look to find someone to hire?
I can plug this one guy right away that I really like to work with, if that's okay. He does all the work for all the museums that I consult for, and has been doing the fabrication for the Heard Museum, I think even, and everything I do with the Scottsdale Museum. His name is C.K. Valenti, Chris Valenti, C.K. Valenti Designs. And he can build stuff as small as you need to have him build stuff, all the way to large, gigantic walls or whatever you need. And I've referred artists to him to design things, and he'll work with you. He really likes to work on projects that are just not the normal domestic, building houses and entertainment centers and stuff like that. So he's really good. There are a few other companies locally, just, you know, if you want to search, you know, museum fabricator, and that kind of stuff will come up. I mostly know of fabricators on the West Coast that I use for stuff in California and up north that even work on projects here. Ironwood in Los Angeles is good. Lexington is good. And they'll design it over there and ship it over here, that kind of thing, if they need to.
Are there any critter sculptures in your future?
It depends on you guys if you want to hire me to do one. No, that would be cool. I mean, just doing this, I just did it really quick for this workshop, but you know, I can see how it could be kind of cool to take the floor design that I did for the rental car return station, and then, you know, use those critters at train stations and other places so that you could kind of locate yourself and know that it's my work. That would be really cool.
And a question from Cheryl, do you bring in structural engineers to verify your drawings?
Absolutely. And I would, for me, it's like I would ask the fabricator to find that person and have him include that in his cost because they usually know those people already. Yeah, that's why I just, again, like I kept emphasizing, this is a design drawing. Like I don't want to claim that this is how you build it. That's why I put not for construction really big on this drawing.
And from Shannon, have you worked with cities that don't have as much involvement as Phoenix?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Have you worked with cities that don't have as much involvement as our office does as Phoenix?
Well, I haven't had that much experience in public art, so this is the only one that I know. But what I know of other people's projects is that Phoenix Office of Arts and Cultures is really great in, you know, making sure that we're taken care of all along the way. And I mean, this is like a dream project to start with. I've heard of a lot of other horror stories, of course, where the artist has to figure out all their own insurance and all that kind of stuff. And some people say just try to get projects through the city so that you don't have to deal with the fabricators and all that stuff if you don't have to.
To that question, one of the things we'll be working on for future workshops is really what kind of coordination typically goes on with project managers, fabricators, and basically the whole village of all folks to build projects. And so we'll be planning workshops on that where you can go into, really drill into those questions that you have in more detail. We laugh in our office, and not cynically, but sort of hopefully, that nobody will ever know, and that's the truth. Nobody will really ever know all the twists and turns that go on behind the scenes to make projects complete. And that goes from design all the way through fabrication and all the workers on their hands and knees out there building those floors to the completion. Nobody will really ever know what it takes unless you go through it. So we're trying to pull back the curtain on that, and Katie's come up with a great promo for the next series, and it'll be pretty much taking this old house approach to public art, where we can dive into projects and really give you the chance to talk to artists about how did you get this done? What did you do when the fabricator said X? And how did you find a fabricator? All those questions, which, you know, we sort of know by heart now in our program. We'd like to share all that information over the coming year with all the artists who are interested. So spread the word about these projects. Are there any other questions coming in?
I just wanted to say one last thing too. It's great to show up with all this professional stuff, documents and everything, but you know, the fabricators are real people, and you can just go and ask them, hey, what do you guys need from me? Before you start drawing all this stuff and spending all this time, they may just say, hey man, let's just talk about this, and you don't have to draw anything. We can do it on our end and you can approve what we do. So I like to let the professionals be the professionals and find out what they can do. They know way more about welding than me, so why would I call out what types of welds to do? I would rather have a conversation with them and find out what their specialties are and, you know, how they like to design things, because they're going to take your drawing and pick it apart and figure out how to you know, get the most out of materials by measuring the shapes of things and, you know, how they cut it out on panels and stuff. You know, you don't have to, if you don't have that experience, you don't have to do that stuff. You can just ask them if that's something that they do.
Any more questions? If not, thanks so much again for joining us.
Woohoo. That was good. Thanks, everybody.
Oh no, he's gone mute. Thanks everybody. Look for the next series that will start, I think, October 1st, which is coming up pretty quickly, and feel free to register for that, and so you can get the link ahead of time and join us for those. There'll be great workshops in October and on into November. Thank you so much for spending part of your day here. It's great.